19th, 2014, and we are interviewing Theodore Charles Fortner at the Adams County Courthouse. Theodore is how old? 90 years old, and he was born on October 24th of 1924. My name is Jennifer Fisher. I will be the interviewer, and Rita Corson will be the court reporter. So, let's start, Theodore. Can you tell me where and when you were born?
Seattle, Washington. That was more or less of a convenience, I believe, because my family was actually living in eastern Washington in a small town north of Spokane. And I think my mother went to Seattle just for the boat, with her mother.
Okay.
And then we went back to eastern Washington until I was 5 years old.
And what was that town called? What was that town called in eastern Washington?
The town was called Valley.
Valley?
Valley, Washington.
Okay.
And then we moved west in 1929 to western Washington and to the town of Arlington. That's about 60 miles north of Seattle.
Okay.
And we were 11 miles out of Arlington, so we were really in the sticks.
Yeah. A rural area. Well, who were your parents and what did they do?
Well, it was Depression days, so my dad just did anything he could find to make a dollar. And my mother was strictly a housekeeper. I have 8 brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
One set of twins in the family.
Okay. Did any of your siblings serve in the military?
Yeah, I had 4. Three brothers. They all served. One, 2 in Korea, and one, the youngest, was in the Cold War era in some sort of radio secrecy in Turkey.
Okay. Were you in the middle of the siblings, of all those siblings, or were you an older sibling?
I'm the first son, third born.
Okay.
I have 2 older sisters.
So then you lived in western Washington.
Until I went in the Army.
Okay. What were you doing before you entered the Army?
So I went directly out of high school.
Okay. So you graduated from high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I had to they gave me a 6-month deferment in order to finish high school.
So you were drafted?
I've been ill for quite a while and lost a lot of school. And I had to register at age 18. And they said, well, you can have a deferment for 6 months to finish. So I think I graduated in, I always said, June 13, and June 23, I was in the Army.
Oh, wow. So you had told me earlier that you entered the Army, and then tell me about your first experience with the Army. Did you go to boot camp June 23rd?
I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, for basic training.
Mm-hmm.
That's an armored training center. I think that was 13 weeks. And then I had leave, and then went to Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. And was actually in a division there, 16th Armored Division, but that broke up later because they shipped every private PFC on the post.
Mm-hmm.
And which they weren't supposed to have done. There was a foot infantry regiment on base, and I think that's where they were supposed to ship the privates and PFCs, but they took everybody on the post. The commanding officer a little overzealous, so I broke up that division, and then I went to the line training in between. And ended up, fortunately, I said in an armored division in France.
So how did you feel your first days of service? What was that like for you? It was good? You enjoyed your initial experience with the Army? Did you enjoy your initial experience in the military?
Very much.
So, and then your instructors that you had through basic training and your first assignment, do you have any memories of them, of what they were like?
Well, in basic training, I don't remember a lot of particulars, really. We went through everything, all the different vehicles. I was an assigned driver for what everybody else called a Jeep, but in the Armored Forces they called it a Peep. The quarter-ton vehicle, and I was assigned driver. That was in Camp Chapter.
Okay.
But in Fortner, it was just training.
Your
We
basic.
went through all weapons and all sorts of things.
How did you adapt to military life at that time?
Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Adjusted in a hurry.
What was that statement about reveille, waking up to the music?
Oh yeah, when I first arrived there, we arrived late. And they said, you can sleep in, you don't have to stand around. And I think that amounted about a half hour difference really.
Oh.
So anyway, I woke up and there was loud radio playing, and I asked the guy there, I said, hey buddy, could you turn that radio down? I said, they told us we could sleep in, and he just laughed and said, that isn't the radio, you'll get used to it. It was the bugle calls and martial music all day long over the whole coast. So
Oh, wow. Did you get used to it?
we got used to it in a hurry.
Okay, so then I believe that you said that you went to France.
Yes.
That's where you served. Okay. What do you remember about arriving there? What were your thoughts?
Well, I landed on Omaha Beach, but after the initial time, I think it was, since I found the dates, I think about July 20. And when I went in on the beach off the landing craft, just because there was no
That was your
glass.
first experience there. Was
And terrible place. You can really appreciate what a challenge it was. Then from there I went into what we call a replacement depot in a few days, and then assigned to a unit. So I always mention one thing, it kind of struck me as like you've seen on TV in an apple orchard in the evening. Kind of casual where we were assigned. And they assigned me to one unit, and I said, well, Captain, I've been trained in the R&R platoon in the Fortner division. If I could I'd like to be assigned to that same unit. He said, well, that's all very good, but we haven't had any casualties in that unit. So there's no opening. And, okay. Then there was a lieutenant, and then he was Marine lieutenant the same day. It ended up my platoon leader. And, he and I got along real well.
you did. So you felt lucky that you got along really well with your platoon leader. You got along really well. What about the other men in your?
Oh, I got along with most of them. Had a little run-in with the platoon sergeant a couple of times, but I've had that at Fort Knox too. Given advice to non-coms, and I was dressed down for that. So that's your place to give advice. You take orders. Yes, sir.
And that was that.
Yes, sir.
I know that wasn't He likes to give orders.
So it sounds like you were on the front lines for a while. You were on the front lines.
From, I think about June, let's see, what is that now, July, just was just about the St. Louis breakthrough, whatever that was. So I say I landed in France, I think July 20. That was just a few days after I was assigned to a division. And from there until November 25th when I was wounded.
Okay, before we talk about your wounds, did you want to talk about any of the combat action that you witnessed, or?
Well, I was just going to mention there's not a lot of action in it, but after we did this introduction when we were assigned to a unit, the very next morning we went out on a company patrol on the Brest Peninsula, which is a little bit west of Normandy, and ended up behind the German lines. So next thing you know, they said, 6 bayonets, and we're going to charge. So I was kind of hanging back, been trained in this, but I thought, well, I'll just ease back a little and follow the lead of the rest of the squad. And then every time I slowed up, sort of different than others. So I finally said, let's go. Well, we didn't have any big hassle. We took a couple of prisoners and scared a lot of Germans. German soldiers, because we've been charging, following, shooting, and pretty wild. Never I got back to the camp area, I told the rest of the squad, I said, what I was doing, I was kind of hanging back to follow their lead. And I said, hey, this is our first experience with this too.
Wow.
So that was one of the wildest things I had until a little later. And most of our travel was convoy, and we'd stop with armored infantry. You travel in half tracks until you get into some action or resistance, and then you stop and go on foot. And so I was often on that way. And sporadic action, nothing much exciting to talk about really. But I'm only involved in what I individually did, not the big picture. So.
Okay. And you said you got wounded in November of that year?
Yeah.
What happened there?
That was a mortar shell that hit me.
Okay.
We were advancing across the open field and towards the wooded area. We expected resistance, and sure enough, we started receiving mortar rounds. And I've just begun to kind of straighten up as well. I got through this one. And then that next one had my name on it.
Where did it hit you?
Anatomically, my lower left leg was the worst.
Okay.
And a couple of flesh wounds in the thighs and a broken left arm.
Oh.
And a broken jaw. I had a couple of funny comments after all that.
Tell them what you did when you got wounded.
The first thing I'd always been told somewhere if a broken bone, if you could pull the bone apart a little bit, it ease the pain. So I drove her overshoes on and I put my right foot over the left and pushed down on it. And it did. The pain was terrible in my leg. That's the only pain I had. And it eased the pain. My foot would slip off. Oh boy. I fought 3 times that and I said, no more of that, I'll just suffer.
Okay. That's
and they
incredible.
got to me after a while and took me back to the aid station, and I was laying on a litter. And Lieutenant Colonel came up and said, would you like a cigarette? Yes, sir. So he lit one and handed it to me and took a puff on that, and the smoke came out the side of my face. I said, that's not going to work very well. So I just passed that off and handed it back to him.
Wow.
And the next thing I felt I had my rifle like beside me, and I put a tug on that, and I turned to this lieutenant and said, I'll just take this. And I blared at him. I said, nobody takes that rifle from me. So I looked at the colonel, so I had, so as soon as they gave me a shot, I know they took me away.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
So did they move you to a hospital? You were moved to a hospital?
that was a field station there, also battalion aid station, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a very few days in a hospital in Nancy, which is a pretty good sized city. And then from there I lifted to England to a general hospital. And that was 3.5 months there. In traction and cast on my arm, jaws were, liquid diet.
Was the care good, though? You were taken care of?
Yeah.
So you were in the hospital for 3.5 months, then were you sent back to the United States?
And then when they got me patched up enough to travel, then I was airlifted back to the States.
While you were in action and then in the hospital, was it easy, or how did you stay in touch with your family?
Oh, I was writing letters, but I wasn't receiving any. And I found out later they weren't either. The first message they had was, regret to inform you of something. Your son has been slightly wounded.
So they weren't receiving your letters.
And he was actually in the hospital for 35 months.
For 35 months.
3 years.
You were in the hospital for 3 years.
Yeah. Well, it was a lengthy patchwork because it was plastic surgery, repairing the surface, a big hole in my leg. And they had to transfer the tissue from my chest, and they used the hand as a carrier. And then they eventually transferred down to the, draw your leg up and hook up to the tissue over the big hole in my leg. And then I had a bone graft after that.
So it was 3.5 months in England, but then they flew you back to the United States, where you then spent.
The total time from November 44 to the end of October 47.
Wow.
Could you tell them about losing your platoon leader? Wasn't that just before?
What?
Losing your platoon leader, wasn't that just before you got wounded?
Your platoon leader.
Oh, yes.
So you lost friends, comrades in your unit.
I heard later. I'd even had a Christmas card from the platoon leader, and then I heard later he didn't.
He was killed in action. You were close to him.
Were you assumed command after he left? Correct?
No, more or less. I was frequently put in a position, I don't remember getting orders much from my non-com. It was always from this Lieutenant French. Direct from him, and instead of from the non-com, they say, Fortner, take 2 men to do this, or go there.
So you assumed those leadership roles. You assumed those leadership roles from.
Yes. Wow. I think I always have in my entire life, so it's easy to do here.
Okay.
And that's how I got the trouble. Well, I wanted to.
Yeah, when they didn't appreciate that.
Advise people what to do.
Did you form relationships outside of your platoon with people in France? Did you meet?
Not much, no. The one incident that my son wants to mention, and that was kind of a surprise, really. We're in a town, I can tell you this story. And there was this beautiful young lady, it's civilian, of course. And I was talking to her, and we had a few moments there. And I kept trying to talk to her and give me a souvenir of dangly earrings she had. she wouldn't give into that.
Mhm.
And finally she said, part English, part French, she said, "Vous et moi." And that means you and me sleep together. And American baby pour moi. Et mon souvenir pour vous. That means American baby for me and the Sunday souvenir for me. So that worked out well. Not according to the rules or anything, but my sergeant said, "Okay, just be sure you're back here in the morning."
Mhm. And that was that.
That was that.
Okay.
That was the most intense. I've always been to meet a lady somewhere here or there, wherever it was.
Mhm.
Another one time, we were in Alsace-Lorraine, pretty close to the German border there, and this woman came up, and I don't know, I think she's probably German more than French, and she asked if I would come and have a drink with her dad. I said, "Well, maybe I could." There was two other fellows with me, and I said, "I don't know if I told them to not come with me or what," but anyway, they stayed back, and I said, "If I'm not back in 20 minutes, come and get me." So I went with her to this house, and we had a couple of schnapps, which is German drink.
Mhm.
And it was definitely American sympathizer. It was a nice little visit. And apparently she thought it was okay to ask me initially.
Okay. Did you receive any medals?
I remember those instances more than any of the battle action.
You do?
A couple of times. One time I remember we were coming into a town, we were coming down through a cemetery, and I was carrying my rifle, and I was also bagged with bazooka ammunition, so I put it loaded down, and dirt started kicking up in front of me. And suddenly I realized those were bullets kicking up that dirt, so I got behind a sapling tree about that big to cover, and I said, "Well, that isn't doing much good. Might as well keep moving." Anyway, we got on into town, and we had just run the Germans out because they were clothing and articles scattered around in the building, so they just left in a hurry. And there was one half track we saw down quite a ways away, Germans, and so we started shooting at them, and the lieutenant said, "What's going on?" And I said, "They're leaving." And I said, "Well, we just wanted them to hurry."
Mhm. So, did you receive any medals or citations for your service?
Well, I do have a Purple Heart, and then I also have a Bronze Star medal. At one point, after some action, that was pretty intense at the time, and I'd been, well, let it back up a little bit. My squad leader had gone forward to see why the column had stopped, and left me in charge because our assistant hadn't made the trip in the morning somewhere else, and put me in charge. And we had a little action there in between, but it ended up he didn't come back, so when I was still in charge of the vehicle. And later in the day, we were stopped and bailed out just as the fort was hitting Borden. And I was instrumental in organizing the stand. Everybody was kind of in a row at first. The Russian back up there and the Germans were coming along. So we have to get organized and dig in and so counterattack. And took part in that. And then in the evening, I think this tech sergeant, the platoon sergeant, which I had a little bit of a dislike for, but he said, "Well, we're going to appoint so-and-so, another man, as assistant squad leader. Like, well, Sergeant Tuttle left me in charge, and I was okay with the squad. Yeah, well, I know, but he's been here longer, so that's the way it is. And then they said there was some talk about a broad straw for action of the day between the two of us. And I said, I'm not competing against him. I said, leave me out of it. Because I said he should have been shot. He was disobeying orders from what I told him to do. He made a point of being an aide man, and that wasn't his job. I didn't get any backlash from what I said there. And after that, I never had any more contact with him as assistant sergeant. I can't remember even having any contact with him. He stayed out of my way, I guess.
And that was the best way for that to end, right? Was there a ceremony when you received your medals, or did they just send them to you?
No, just came to with all the paperwork that they don't want to do.
Oh, okay.
And then,
So you came home to a hospital, to an American hospital, and you were there for quite almost 3 years. Whether your return to the hospital or your return to your family, how was that for you?
when I was in New York, they asked me what hospital I wanted to go to. And I said, Madigan General, which was Fort Lewis, Washington, closest to my home. I said, well, they don't do plastic surgery there, and you're going to need that, so the closest one to your home may be in Menlo Park, California. That's where they sent me.
How far was that from your family?
That's the Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah, not San Francisco, but the Bay Area. Long ways.
Okay. So they were not able to visit you?
They came down. My dad was working in Long Beach, California, and my mother and the kids came down, stopped to see me, and she went on down to Long Beach and liked it and ended up buying a home down there and stayed.
So then your family relocated to Long Beach,
Yeah.
California.
So then the hospital moved. I think it was in 45, and I think we moved to Pasadena to another hospital, the Empire Hospital move. And I spent the rest of my time in Pasadena and ended up staying in California from then on until 2013.
So you met your wife in Long Beach?
Well, she was actually in the Army as well. She was in the WAC.
Oh, okay.
As a medical technician. And she attended me in the time on the ward. And we never dated together individually. We were on a group outings together all that time. And then she was discharged in late 46, I think it was. And I'd never seen her. There was no contact until July 4, 47. And we happened to be in outing with a group from the hospital, judging the beauty contest for part of the day. And one of my buddies from home said, guess who I just saw? Smitty. Her name was Elizabeth Smith. Everybody called her Smitty. So something clicked. And from then on, we were a couple. I was 47 July, and we were married in December 47.
How many
And
children?
together, how long?
53 years.
That's wonderful. How many children did you have?
3 boys.
3 boys.
And us, the youngest, at age 45, to a heart attack. Because they didn't take care of it so too well. And anyway, it just happened.
And your wife is deceased?
She died in 2001. And then we lost Dan in 1999. And other son lives in Hawaii.
Okay. How did you come to Quincy?
Well, because my son is in Camp Point, which is close to Quincy. And I just started thinking about looking for a retirement place. Because I was not able to take care of I had a rural area, and I couldn't take care of it the way I used to. So I just started thinking about it, and he came up with this. It is a beautiful place here, Curtis Creek in Quincy. And we investigated a little bit. It looks pretty good.
So
initially, it was supposed to be a 3-month trial. That was our minimum. And that's why we celebrated a year, the 1st of November this year. I'm permanent now.
you're happy. What was your job after the military? What did you do?
Well, I went to work kind of casually with my father-in-law to be in a wood shop, a cabinet shop. And he was busy and said he scratched for help and delivery. And I said, well, I can come over and help you for a while. I think this is like on a Friday or Saturday. And he says, could you start Monday? And I said, no, because I have to go pick up my 5220 check on Monday. After we were discharged that way on the CDD, you had 52 weeks for $20. So we called it the 5220 Club. And okay, when I can start Tuesday, and I was there for 37 years.
Wow. So you must have gotten along well with your father-in-law and enjoyed your work.
He didn't last very long. He died in 53. I took over, but I was there one from the beginning up to superintendent of the plant.
Did you bring any
Place finally folded after in 87.
Okay. It's a nice career for you.
Did you tell them about where your father used to work at?
What?
Your trip to Hanford?
Your trip to Hanford?
Trip to Hanford, where your dad used to work.
Your dad used to work, where did your dad work?
Yeah, my dad worked at Hanford, Washington. That was one of the atomic energy plants.
Oh.
That's right. And I knew what he knew that at the time. And I stopped there to see him in February 44 when I went on leave from Fortner. And it was kind of a paramilitary type camp, just pretty rough. There were a lot of people from everywhere. And I said, what do you do here? And he said, I don't know, and I don't talk about it. Very hush-hush. So I spent one night there and visit with him, went on to Washington, to the West Coast, and then went back to Fort Knox again.
Because they were making the nuclear weapon that ended the war.
Yeah.
And nobody knew what they were doing.
And they couldn't talk about it. So.
No. Very, very hush-hush. So on the way back, there was a nice interview with a young lady on the train from Seattle. It was in my musical group now, a small band. And it's presented the lady singer. She says, is this seat taken? I said, no, she had to sit here. So we enjoyed a very nice trip across country. And I remember one time I asked her, I said, are you attached to this band leader? He keeps giving me the evil eye like you. He said, he'd like to have a hold on me, but he doesn't. I was all right. I said, I don't want to get involved in the three-way.
Did you bring any souvenirs back from
No,
France? No.
what little I had, burned in the half track, including the address of the lady in France.
So no further contact with her.
I knew her first name, but that's all.
So how did your military experience affect your life?
Well, I don't know whether it affected me particularly. I had thought about staying in the military, but I wasn't able to because I wasn't physically fit
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. But I had thought about it, so I like my military career. And,
What are the life lessons you learned from the military?
uh,
What kind of life lessons did you learn from your military experience?
Well, I learned a lot about instruction and teaching. For one thing, the way the Army approaches everything. It's pretty rapid, and they show you how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you turn around and say, now you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn pretty fast as you go, but in a hurry. Very practical.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people mumble about the military, but it has a lot of assets as well.
It sounds like your personality fit in well with that discipline.
I didn't have any trouble with it.
Yeah.
Not too much.
Mhm.
The only thing was advising my superiors what to do,
Mm-hmm.
because I could see where they could do a better job.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your lifelong friend, Dad. The one that you're still alive.
Do you stay in contact with a?
Oh, I have one of my neighbors that I grew up with in the little town of Arlington. We're still in touch. He was born in 1920, so he's 4 years older than me, but he's still able.
And how about Galbraith? Bill Galbraith.
Bill, your son mentioned Bill Galbraith. Is that a?
Oh, that's another. That's the military buddy that he was in a paratrooper, and actually landed on D-Day.
Mm-hmm.
But we were in the hospital together, and we had almost identical wounds. Just below the knee on the left leg.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the same kind of repair, and he's 10 months older than I, and still able, and I see him in California. We were just out there in October.
Oh.
So he squabbled a bit because he was a paratrooper and on in the ground forces, so we had struggled going to war.
Do you have any messages that you would like to leave for future generations who will see or hear this interview?
From this interview, I appreciate very much the opportunity to be involved in this. I had another interview just recently, kind of I think an amateur thing compared to this. But it was someone, part of her college essays or thesis or something. It was an interesting interview and very similar to this one, but this is a much more thorough. Somebody said, well, maybe you don't need to go to this one. I said, well, I'm definitely going to this one. So, it's very worthwhile because what little any one of us might contribute is if you don't get someone down on paper, going forever. So I think it's worthwhile. And, I try to persuade anybody, any other military man I know to consider doing something. That's why I recently went through and wrote up my autobiography.
You did.
From my, I've gone through a lot of that here tonight, but from my earliest days, at 5 years of age, until somewhere in the very recent times. And started out Jim wanted, my son wanted me to go down my military service, and I ended up in my life. And I had 83 pages handwritten, and I think when they typed it up, it's 43 pages. A lot of incidental probably, but pretty much the study of my life.
That's a blessing for your family and those of us that could hear your story today.
It turned out to be quite a project. I think we had 27 or 28 copies of this book made up to pass around because I still have 7 brothers and sisters. I thought it was 9. He was only lost 1.
That's great.
My baby brother was 78.
So your siblings were able to read your story, your children,
Yes.
grandchildren,
Yes.
and now we'll have this recorded and documented forever.
And I'll get a transcript of it. That'll be great.
Is there anything
You
else?
might mention me on it.
I hope it'll make some kind of sense in what
It will.
I've rattled on about because I just chattered.
No, it's an amazing story.
We recently went on this honor flight to Washington, D.C. And Jim was my guardian. So it was quite an intense trip because we pack everything into 24 hours. We started just before midnight at Quincy and went through everything in D.C. and back about 1 a.m. Friday. The following day.
Was it a good trip? You enjoyed?
It was really terrific. It was fantastic experience to visit all these memorials. And the last one of the day was the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unburied.
I've been to that. That's an amazing experience.
Have you seen that? Yeah. Quite a ceremony.
Yes, it is. We want to thank you for being here today and telling us your story.
Oh, I enjoyed it. And, we can tell more. I get a little emotional.
It's okay. Thank you.